On the R rate and the way that's being published today, the range, as you mentioned, is 0.7 to 0.9 nationwide, and we're confident that, from what we understand from SAGE, that it's therefore less than 1. There's then a band in each area, across the country, but in each area, where there's a sort of high and a low estimate made based on a number of series of different modelling approaches taken by SAGE, and it so happens that one of them, as you rightly say, says it could be between 0.9 and 1.1, but it's an outlier of I think, the central estimate. To answer your question directly, we are very interested, of course, to be able, the more data we can analyse, the more we can see where there are outbreaks. I noticed today we're at 193,000 plus tests done or sent out. So we've got a large number of tests being produced, and that gives us much better, more informative data about where issues might bubble up in the future. So I wouldn't want to rule anything out, but I think probably that southwest figure today isn't quite as maybe being reported. But again, I turn to the expertise of the professor.
Well, yes, thank you. And it's exactly as the Secretary of State has described. So SAGE, or its modelling group, SPI-M, takes data from a number of different academic groups who do modelling around the R number. And then it takes all those individual models, which are all slightly different. They're all using slightly different assumptions and different models. And then it produces a consensus. And when it produces that consensus, it essentially has a central most likely projection and then a range around it, which represents that you can never be completely confident on a single central projection, and there is a range, what we call a confidence limit, that you might be familiar with in statistics. As you said, SAGE for the first time today has published those regional R values. They do have central projections and ranges, and the important thing is that in all regions, the central projection within that range is below 1.
Thank you. Ashes, do you want to come back?
Can I
yes,
just...
I do, sorry. Actually. Can I just ask, we've been speaking to local businesses and people in the southwest region today. They're quite worried about it. So what would you say to them to allay their fears and concerns?
So I actually cut Stephen off. You were finishing the point as well.
I was going to make a further point around that R, of course, is a very important way of looking at this, but there are other things that we look at. So you may also be aware that the Office for National Statistics has published again today the results from their surveillance study, where they randomly sample individuals in the population to directly look for how many people are testing positive for this virus. And that study has shown that over the last month or so, or last few weeks, we have seen a steady reduction in their projection of the number of infections in the community. And really that evidence also suggests that the R value is below 1, because it's only when the R value is below 1 that we would see that decrease in the number of infections. So R is really important, but there are other ways too of measuring how frequent the virus is in the population.
And Ashes, I'd say, look, the message to somebody in the southwest watching this, concerned that they've seen that at least one of the projection models suggests there's a range which could go above 1, is please stay alert, follow the advice, stay at home. That's the only, we now know that's the only way to defeat this thing in the short term, and it's doubly important to do so, but across the country as well. And I think not to be over alarmed, because as Professor Stephen Powis has said, this was actually the top of the range, which had a number of others which showed it was still below 1, but please stay alert.